Hello and welcome to Bedson and Coffey Unfiltered,
where we will be discussing fitness, lifestyle, healthy eating habits, relationships, gas station performance pills, answering romantic queries. You have anything else, Tyler? Is there anything? Do you need help with anything right now? Because I feel like I'm in a position where I can help you with it.
I mean, and everything else that we come across as we go. But
That's
you know
it.
what it's going to be, right?
It's going to be unfiltered.
We've been together for a really long time. I don't know, actually.
What was his name? But no, just,
Eli.
yeah. Don't tell everything you know. But there was this. He sent me this video, and this guy was saying, like this, you're ramping up your gear, and you take this many milligrams per kilogram of body weight, and this, and this, and all these fucking things. And it got to where he was saying, okay, and then you'll do 15, whatever he said, I can't remember, so many milligrams per kilogram of body weight. And he's like, what do you think about that? And I was like, I'm 220 pounds. That means I would take 1,500 milligrams a week of each of these supplements. And I was like, dude, I like having a liver. I kind of need that. I was like, none of this shit makes sense. I think what they don't understand is any fool with a phone or a computer can upload whatever the fuck they want. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to have any knowledge on the subject whatsoever. And these kids are just blindly following that. And it's going to, they don't realize, you have to pay to play. Mm-hmm. And all this stuff comes with consequence.
Yeah, it's become a huge problem too, because you'll see on Instagram, especially now.
That's what this was on. This guy was,
it's like you said, it's all reels of people just, and it'll be young kids, and they'll be like, "This is what I'm using," and it makes it seem like that's okay, and they need it. Or, I mean, when I was like 18 years old, I remember I worked at a supplement store, and I didn't realize how many people were on stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then I kind of figured out it was like 80% of the gym, even your local soccer mom was running some clenbuterol, and you're like, holy shit, like Anavar, because they just wanted to get in better shape. So it's rampant what people think they need, but then they don't go with diet or training, or they don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah. And when you tell them, they start asking you these questions, and you say, well, how's your training? How's your diet? Well, I eat pretty good. What's pretty good? What'd you have this morning? Well, I haven't ate yet.
Yeah.
Well, how in the fuck you gonna gain weight? And so they don't ever consider their training or their diet. They just want to jump straight up to that. And 16, 17 years old, your test is higher than it's going to be. And you're setting yourself up to be on hormone replacements for the rest of your life. And all these things come with consequence. Essentially, you're putting poison in your body for the sake of aesthetics or strength or performance or something. So you do that. And my idea, and I know yours is too, the minimum dose necessary for the desired effect. And that's if we are even in a point to use it. Yeah. That's even if you're in a point to use it. And the first thing you got to do is check off the boxes that you actually have control of. You see them come in, they fuck off for 20 minutes, and then they go in the posing room for a half hour.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I couldn't tell you lifted weights unless you told me.
Well, I start a lot of mine off natural now. And
as
my biggest
should,
idea is start them off natural completely, make them compete as natural, and see if they even like it.
Yeah.
See if they enjoy it, see if they can go through the mental process of getting conditioned. And then, down the road, if that's the decision they make and they want to go all in, sure, after a couple years, that's something I leave up to them. But I think a lot of people skip to that thinking it's going to get them these fast results and they're going to get ahead. And it's just like, no. I have these natural guys people are like, what are you on? What are you on? And it's like, they're on just, I train and I eat.
Yeah. And I know you've seen it. I know you both have seen this, and I've had this happen so many times. I'll have an athlete that's natural and not even a teen. I mean, like somebody that's 30 years old.
Yep.
And you fix their diet. You have them working out in an intelligent manner and pushing intensity, and everybody around them's like, oh my God, he's on something. What are you on? What are you taking? And it's like, no, like he's doing this the way he's supposed to.
Yeah.
And he's doing the things that you're not willing to do, and you're trying to bypass that with supplementation.
Yep.
And you can't. The gear just kind of, the gear adds to it once you get all that stuff in place.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's going to take a shit ton of gear and sit on the couch and become Mr. Olympia.
That's what I always say. It's, I even put a lot of things in front of gear, and I think we've talked about this before. It's like I'll put water, food, training, cardio. If you have all that stuff in line first, and then you add supplementation, because the supplementation supplements all those other things.
Yeah.
So if you don't have those baseline things in order, what are you supplementing?
Yeah.
The
actual term itself doesn't mean to replace, it means to supplement.
Yeah.
You're filling in spots that exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard topic, and I try to, because when I started, I feel like I started way too early as well, and I was about 21. And I feel like I could have waited another 3 or 4 years at least and gotten a lot of things better. But I try to put that information into the new generation coming up, because it's kind of cool, because they do have a lot more natural leagues now, and they have a lot more natural opportunities.
It's getting a lot more popular. I'm glad to see that.
And you'll see some people, and I'll get them sent to me, and they're like, is this guy actually natural? And I'm like, yeah, he is. He's just done it for 10 years.
Yeah. And you have so many people, they think, well, just because this guy looks better than me, he's got to be doing something. Yeah. And it's like, no, like he may be genetically superior to you.
Oh, yeah.
He might be working harder than you. Stop being so fucking arrogant that you think nobody can be doing any better than you, because this guy, I've seen you in the gym, brother. That guy outworks you. But look at, Jesus Christ, look at pictures of like Ronnie Coleman when he was in high school.
Oh, yeah, it's insane.
Look at Lee Priest when he was like 14.
Yep.
Look at these guys whenever they were kids. And it's like, okay, you see that they're genetically superior. And, also you'd be surprised to see what some people run that are, tip top in their field. Like not everybody runs a shit ton of gear.
Right.
Yeah. I've seen maintenance men at gyms take enough fucking gear to float a battleship and still look terrible. And then you've got guys that can go pro taking minimal amounts.
Yep.
It's, there's so many things that come before that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's the idea that it's just like a magical pill, which is kind of wild. I don't think obviously it would be really hard to try and like regulate this. There's absolutely just no way to do that, in the sense that like we're trying not to let, kids under 23, let's just say, get their hands on gear to essentially wreck their hormones basically forever. Because like you said, they're going to have to be on TRT for the rest of their lives now. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, if there could somehow be some sort of regulation, that would be great, but there's not, and there probably never will be or can be for that matter. Yeah. So how do we, as professionals who are sort of taking on this responsibility of the newer generation, like Tyler said, how can we teach them that, less is more? Less is more in the sense that like you don't even need really anything, and I feel too, if your frontal lobe is not to a point where it's at least almost fully developed to where you're able to make these really, in my opinion, heavy decisions as far as like deciding to start on something, then maybe you probably shouldn't be taking anything in the first place. Also, secondly, you got to look at your coach and kind of assess their track record. If they're putting kids who are like 20 and below on any sort of thing that is going to, be anabolic or affect their hormone system in any sort of way, and they're not to a good point, if I can say it like that, then you need a new coach. That's a criminal. That is someone who you should be kind of wary of, because they're not telling you all of the negative side effects that could come from that. They're like, you could just get big, you could win this, that, the other thing, because they also have an agenda where they want to further themselves in their career. They see potential in these kids. They want to hop on that train early. And they're like, oh, well, if I get this kid started on a cycle, like sooner rather than later, they're going to be the next big thing, the next prodigy, the next, Chris Bumstead before the time that they're 22, which that's a really heavy thing to place on a child, just straight up on a kid. Like these teenagers, these are kids. And while I do think it's really neat that all of these kids are getting involved in bodybuilding so early, I do think that this is a constructive outlet for them versus obviously other things that they could be doing. You got to be responsible about it. Like, I take it so seriously, the responsibility that I have when someone signs up with me, because their health is paramount. Like,
has to be.
Even 100%. And even with my girls who are 22, 20, I'm not putting them on stuff. I don't want to. I want to max out their natural potential first and see how far they can take themselves first before they, kind of indulge if you will, and this host of things that may or may not benefit them, you know, in the long run.
And there's so many things that are irreversible. Once you get to a certain point, you know, some of the side effects that females can see from running gear and excess gear and certain types of gear and so on, that's irreversible. You have these kids, like I told you earlier before we started the episode, I've had 2 kids that are both under 18 in the last month talk to me and say, you know, they were interested in coaching and that they've run this gear and this gear and this gear. And I was like, the one actually started, he's like, I'm about to start my next cycle. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you know, I'm about to start my next bulk cycle. And I was like, what?
Who told you that?
What are you starting? What are you doing?
Right.
And he starts to tell me like, well, last year I did this, 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 and this. And it's like, well, if you're 17 now, that means you're doing that at 16. And I was like, man, you don't need that.
No.
You know, and, you know, I think these kids, there's this certain, they hear about these things. It's like anything else, you know, like you're a kid, you wonder, you see all these things and you think that's got to be the secret. That's got to be it, you know, but it's not. Bodybuilding is not nearly as sexy as everybody makes it out to be.
Right.
Nope. Bodybuilding is living like a dog. It's doing the same thing, eating the same thing every fucking day.
Yes.
And it's a boring life. It's not nearly as glamorous as it seems to be. And, you know, you see everybody up on stage and it looks so cool and the lights and the trophies and all that stuff. And it's, you know, but no, man, like the day in and day out of it is about as boring as it fucking gets.
Yep.
And the more you get used to living that boring, monotonous life, doing the same things daily, those are the guys that do well.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're going to do one cycle and turn pro. And for most people, you know, they got these, you know, delusions of grandeur. And it's like, dude, you may not ever go pro. You might not ever win a damn show.
Right.
You know, it might not be, it's one of those things. So like you said, to your point, find out if you even like it. Because once you open Pandora's box, there's no closing.
Nope.
You know, you start messing with your hormone levels and everything else. And now all of a sudden you're 25 and, you know, your hormone levels are that of a 4-year-old girl. You know, and then you decide, you know, it's just, there's nothing comes like that without, you know, without side effects or consequence.
Right.
And if you have a coach that is telling you to do that, or you have a football coach telling you to take SARMs, all these things, like we've discussed before, like they're not considering that person's future and their health long term. And if you're doing that with a kid, trying to sell him a vial of this or that to make $20 here and there and tell him you're a piece of shit.
Yep.
You really are.
Facts.
Plain and simple.
Yep. You got to be careful with the things you do because people's minds are very new to this. They don't know the difference. And I think our job as coaches is to educate people.
It is.
So even before I try to tell anybody to use anything at all, I'm like, okay, this is what you need to know about it.
Exactly.
Here's some steps to research it. I want you to research it on your own too and make this decision yourself.
Yep.
Because we need to give them everything.
Yep.
We can't just be like, okay, this is what it does. Like we can glamorize everything's positive benefits, but there are some consequences.
Right.
And when you're in a position of authority like a coach, you know, they're going to listen to you.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got these kids and they see somebody that may be a little bigger than them, maybe a little stronger than them or whatever, and they think that guy knows. It's like, no, he's just run a bunch of gear and he's not really done anything for him. What's he ever done? If I see him on the street, would I know he lifted weights? Does he look in shape? Or would he have to tell me that he lifts weights? You know, that's the thing, you know, and if that upsets somebody, then have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up. I don't care one way or another.
That's the bottom line. So today we have a guest. We have my wife.
My wife.
Yes.
Yes.
Introduce yourself and tell us what about.
Hi, my name is Laura Bedson. I'm a coach alongside my husband under our company, Built by Bedson. I, as well as my husband, take on competitors and lifestyle clients. And I used to be a bodybuilder. I kind of still am. I'm kind of retired at the moment, but I am an IFBB Pro. I'm a figure professional. Yeah. Good enough for an intro?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, got some questions for you. I think Eli's going to start off.
Okay.
And
I've got answers.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So we could go in a wide variety of ways here because, I mean, like, I could use this to set Tyler up for a lot of things. I'm not saying that I won't.
I'm not saying I won't help you.
No, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
But
one thing that I want to touch on is you two, you work together with Built by Bedson. You both have clients. You both work together. You work out together. A lot of couples struggle to even work out together.
Yeah.
And you guys spend a lot of time together. and I've been around you guys, like this isn't fake. This isn't something for the podcast. Like you guys genuinely do very well together. And I admire that about both of you very much. So what are the things that you do that help you guys work out together, get along throughout the day? Or behind closed doors, do y'all just scratch each other's eyes out and fight? And
No, we have a super chill relationship. I think that, and this is something we started talking about before the mics even went on, you know, like there's just sort of a separation that happens during the day. Tyler and I work out of our house. We obviously live in our house. You know, we do everything in this one building, right? There's no going anywhere for us. So we are stuck. I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but we are stuck together all day. And I think that what really helps us kind of like have that separation still, again, even though we aren't going to work, right, is that I work in our office and Tyler works. He loves to just work out our counter in our kitchen, and we kind of just separate ourselves for the entire day. Periodically, I'll come down or, you know, have something to do, or he'll come up and just kind of be like, hey, I just wanted to like check in, see what's going on. Like, how's your day going? But we don't really talk much throughout the day. And I think that that's what really helps. I don't think that was like a super romantic or anything kind of answer, but it's like you have to have that separation. Otherwise, you're just going to claw each other's eyes out. And we don't like to live our lives that way. We're very peaceful, I would say. So after the workday is done, I come downstairs or whatever, and I'm like, hey, how'd your day go? Like, what went on today? Like, and we just kind of like debrief our day at that point, and then come together as a couple at the end of the day and try to put our phones down. It's rather hard. As you know, people are always texting you, needing something, which is totally fine. That's part of the service we provide, but we really try and, put our phones down at the end of the night and just kind of like watch a show together. Or Tyler and I play chess a lot. We play Boggle a lot.
Who normally wins when y'all play chess?
Tyler usually. He's super good at it. I'm not very well versed in chess. He started kind of trying to teach me last year, but we have very long games of chess. Our chess games are like 45 minutes long.
Well, it's because she takes like 5 minutes to make each move. Like,
when did this become a call-out podcast?
We have to have a timer sometimes because I'm like, all right.
Gotcha.
Like, I'll be sitting there watching Instagram videos and I'm like, did you move yet? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, where?
I got to think about it, because Tyler's really good about thinking, and this is not just in terms of chess, but like in life in general. He's really good about thinking like 10 moves ahead. Like he's really future focused in that sense. And I'm someone who really likes to exist in the present. So I have to sit there and think about things a lot. And again, this applies to all aspects of life. So that's why we have long chess games, sure. But I give him a run for his money.
Yeah. She's gotten better. She knows how the pieces move, and like,
that's helpful.
Listen, he's making it sound like I'm so dumb.
I'm just kidding. No, she surprises me sometimes. She actually wins quite a few times now. It's because I think she's realized how to analyze everything a little bit better. And now she's like surprising me with some of the moves she makes. She'll set me up for traps. I'm like, what the, like, how did you learn how to do that? Like,
Trapped your ass.
Yeah, we it's kind of funny because like people ask us like, what do you guys do for fun? And it's literally one of the things we do is we sit outside and we'll play chess.
Like old men in a park. Yeah, but that's kind of how we kind of just decompress at the end of the day. Like, our jobs are very stressful sometimes. Again, as you very well know, emotions are high with what we do, especially with our competitive clients, because it is do or die at all times for these people, right? And we feel the same way. We want them to be successful. Absolutely. We're very on top of it as well. But there are certain situations with this job where you get an email and it ruins the rest of your day. Like it just puts you in such a sour mood because it stresses you out because this situation is not something you thought you were going to have to encounter today, something like that. And so that's also something where we try and not bring that home either, like outside of our workspaces. We'll talk about it because we both use each other as like a sounding board. Like if I am having trouble, he's probably dealt with it already. And so I will ask him a question or present the problem to him, and he'll give me feedback I hadn't even thought about yet. And vice versa, especially with females too, because I've gotten really, really good with the female population. I'm not to like toot my own horn, I just am very good at it, right? And so he'll ask me questions sometimes where I'm like, oh, did you think about this, this, and this? And he's like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, I'll try that. But that's the only really aspect where we're bringing work home, like I said. So keeping, like I said, that separation honestly keeps us afloat.
Yeah. I
keeps us liking each other.
One of the cool things is like, as she's been coming up is like, she asks a lot of questions. We discuss a lot of things. We show each other our competitors and our lifestyle clients and the products we're getting, and we'll talk about what we did. And she has taken everything she's learned and then made it into like her own way of doing things, which I feel like she's excelling, especially in the females. Like all she takes is females, of course, but with her female competitors and female clients, it's insane what she's done. And
she's done very well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
When I first started, Tyler took me through his mentorship, which is, a requirement for him hiring coaches on our team is for them to have taken his mentorship, but he obviously does it for other people. But anyway, I did the mentorship. He taught me how he does things. I, of course, asked questions, kind of picked his brain. But as I've gone through my time in the past, like 4 years now, I got hired on with Built by Bedson in 2020. As I've gone on the last 4 years, I've, like he mentioned, just found my own way to do things. Like we talk about it all the time. Coaching is just educated guesses, right? Like I realistically know what result I should be getting from an adjustment I've made that week. And that's just kind of how it goes. So if I'm able to use him as a sounding board, or if I'm able to kind of present to him, okay, here's how I'm thinking about this. I know you think about this differently, but here's how my brain is tracking this. Here's what I'm going to do. What do you think about that? He can give me his perspective. So it's really helpful. So while I feel like for a lot of couples, it's really hard for them to work together, live together, train together, all of this stuff, he and I work very, I guess the word could be symbiotically, to sort of elevate each other, because we're technically doing the same job, right? But he's doing different things than I am.
Absolutely.
So I like to learn from him, and I would like to think that he likes to learn from me sometimes too.
That's true.
So, and the other part of that too, I think that comes in with, I guess any sort of coaching team, but especially a husband and wife coaching team, there's this aspect of competitiveness that can rear its ugly head, wherein, not me specifically, but, the wife could feel like, oh my gosh, she's getting more than me, or like, and vice versa. Like it's constantly trying to one up each other in a sense, if we can think about it that way. He and I don't do that. It's very much like okay, I'm killing it this month. You're being kind of mild this month, but that's okay, because next month it will likely flip, because coaching ebbs and flows. It's not a steady income stream for us all the time, because it just kind of depends on what the month looks like, right?
Sure,
so if I'm ever doing not too hot that month, he's probably doing well. So it's kind of, you have to view it in a sense of like, okay, we're here as a team. We're helping each other in all aspects of life, including business, including training, including living together. I'm going to pick up the slack where, maybe you're too tired to do something. It's just kind of like, you have to figure out how to constantly be trying to elevate and help one another versus tearing each other down, or only really thinking about problems you've had during the day. Kind of a nice separation that has to happen as well between working together and being business partners. And being husband and wife are very, very different relationships. And you have to be able to compartmentalize. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I think that's how we're able to really, do it the way we do it.
Yeah.
And even like for myself, like Katera doesn't coach or anything. She just recently got her training certification. So,
that's awesome.
That's cool. She's interested in all those things. But, even if I sit down and I'm working on something, I have my way about going about things, and I can't do that and entertain you at the same time.
Yeah.
So I need my space to do those things. So yeah, I totally get that. That makes total sense.
Yeah. We work in silence a lot. Like we can be in the same room even working, and it's just, we know we're both doing something. And we'll pop ideas off each other sometimes and all that. But one thing I think is very interesting is I used to be known for a lot of my figure and women's physique clients. Like that was my specialty.
Sure.
And then she has kind of taken over that role, and the females love working with another female. Because they can relate. And she does an excellent job at that, of getting her girls in like absolutely terrific conditioning, perfect presentation. So she offers everything in that aspect to really cater to them. And it's funny because like I've got some solid girls too, but I'm like, man, I don't want to put ours against each other.
He did say to me one time, which made me feel very, very good. He was like, if there's one person who I don't want to put my competitors against, it's your competitors, because they're scary. Yeah. And thank you so much. That makes me feel really good. But as far as like taking over like the figure of it all, I just think it's in the sense that I can relate on a truly 100%. I have absolutely been there level. I also just understand the division inside out because I've lived it. I know what it takes. I know
your strong suit.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's not to say I'm not good with other divisions. I'm good at coaching, but figure is just my sweet spot, man. I enjoy it so much too, because I don't know. It's just,
you're pro in figure,
reward,
so I know it's kind of crazy, like your story about how quick you turned pro, though.
That's actually something I was going to bring up as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool for you to talk about, because some people work for years and years and years to become pro, and your bodybuilding career started and then you took it extremely serious.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you want me to tell them how I like first started bodybuilding? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Good.
When I first started bodybuilding, it was back in 2019, and Tyler actually was not my very first coach. I had a different coach that worked for IFBB Bedson. She ended up leaving. Tyler got me about 4 weeks out of my first show, which was the Tricky Jackson Classic, which is now an NGA show. It used to be NPC. It's now NGA. I did that show. I did bikini and I did figure. Didn't do too hot. I just didn't understand like what a bodybuilding prep took or like demanded of you. When I went through my first one, I really didn't have any guidance. Again, I had a different coach entirely for basically the whole time. I wasn't told to like work on posing. I just didn't do any research too. It's not fully her fault. I should have, done my due diligence, of course, but it didn't go well. In bikini and in figure, I did 2 classes for both divisions. So I went up on stage 4 times. I got a 3rd place for both of them, and then I got a 5th place for both of them. So I just truly shit the bed. Like I just did not do a good job at all. And then the week after I competed in that show, I ended up losing 7 more pounds. Again, I just was like not in great shape for that first one. Like my first coach just didn't really know a whole lot either, just to be candid. Tyler really tried with all his might for those last 4 weeks, but you can't really rectify a wholly fucked up prep, in 4 weeks. It's just not going to happen. So after that show happened, I lost 7 pounds, like I said. It was a mixture of kind of like letting go of a lot of stress. I came from kind of a shitty like living situation at that point too. I had just broken up with like a long-term partner, left the house that he and I lived in together. And, that kind of, I guess like losing 150 pounds in that sense made me feel a lot better. So I lost 7 pounds of my own. And then for the next like year, well, the goal was to compete in 2020, but obviously we all know how 2020 shook out. So I was going to do the Northern Kentucky Grand Prix that year, and then the world shut down. And so I obviously got forced into an off season, which honestly wasn't a bad thing either, because I essentially would have been flipping almost like right into a prep coming out of a first prep. Right. Yeah. And that forced long off season, I couldn't be more thankful for. Like, honestly, thank God for COVID in that sense, because I would have looked shrimpy, honestly, on stage. I didn't have the muscle mass I needed. So I spent the entire length of 2020, building a physique that I thought would be worthy of getting on a stage. And then the wellness division came out and I was like, oh, okay. I've always had really large quads, like very sizable quads. My posterior chain is harder to grow. I'm not going to lie. But we decided, why not? Like, we'll just try it out. We'll see how it goes. You never know. And then I did the Border Clash Championships in Orlando in April of 2021. I was only supposed to do wellness at that show, but about 5 weeks out of that show, my legs got pretty diced. So Tyler and I were like, let's just sign up for figure 2 and just kind of like see what happens. You never know. And so I did both of those divisions at that show. I got second in both of my wellness classes, but I lost both of those classes to the overall wellness winner, who ended up going to get her pro card in wellness that year. She's an Olympian now. Okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And then I also did figure, like I said, and I ended up winning the overall. I literally won that show in a division I had signed up for 5 weeks prior to this show, just because I was like, let's just see what happens. And so it was just kind of serendipitous in that way. Sandy was actually the judge at that show. Tyler Mannion was there as well. So was Attila. But Sandy was my head judge. So after the show, I asked her for feedback, of course, because we had planned to go to Junior USA 6 weeks after Border Clash and just kind of, see what happens. That's the theme of that year. Let's just see what happens. But she responded and she was like, I obviously you're going to do really well in figure if you try, because you just won this show, but your wellness look is very beautiful and your presentation's very nice. Because that's the other thing. I'm extremely big on presentation, very into posing, making sure it's all as beautiful and flowy as possible. If you see any of my competitors up on stage, you will likely know that they were mine, just based on the way that they're presenting themselves. So I was like, okay, like, we'll see. But then I talked to my posing coach, who's actually Sid Gillen. She's 7-time Miss Figure Olympia. She's incredible. I really love her. She gave me some sage sort of like feedback, not necessarily like you should do this, but sort of just kind of as a sounding board, which I really appreciate about her. And then I took that to Tyler and we talked about it more. And I was like, you know what? On a national stage, you have to be 100% or you're nothing, just period. And so the conditioning level from figure to wellness is so different, in my opinion. It's probably just a fact, but I always just feel like I have to say in my opinion. And so I was like, you know, I either got to go all in on one or we're just not going to do one. And we felt at that point that I was more equipped to go the figure route instead. Already just based on where my conditioning was at Border Clash. And so we did figure at Junior USA's. And even though I feel like people consider Junior USA's like the easiest show of the year, and it might be, but in some of these divisions, you have to win your class and then you have to go on into the overall and get top 3 in the overall in order to get your pro card. So my open class at Junior USA's, I think had like seven girls in it. And honestly, two of those girls are Olympians now. At least one of them is.
One is, I know, God, I can't remember her name.
Oh, it's and anyway, so she's an Olympian. Anyway. And then like, I think save for 2 of the girls in that class, rest of them went on to be pros like within the next year or something. Yeah. So it was a very competitive class. I held my own. Watching the video is hilarious because I started on the very outside left and I incrementally jump in girl to girl to girl until I'm finally in the middle. And then they end me there. And I was like, whoa, that was like crazy. Because some of these girls in this class had way more muscle than me. They're much more stacked, much more developed, whatever other synonym I can throw at you right now. I was very not, but my shape and my flow and my presentation took me over the finish line that day. So I won class A and then came back for the overall. They moved me around on stage once. I didn't think I was in top 3 at all, just based on how it looked. But obviously they do reverse order. So they call second runner up, first runner up, and then the winner, right? And so they called me for second runner up and I was like, oh shit, I just won my pro card, you guys. Like, that's crazy. Some people were pissed that year that I won my pro card too. And looking back at those stage photos, I can understand why. Because a lot of people look at the figure division and immediately their brain flips a switch to almost like WPD-esque where they're like, she's not big enough. She doesn't have enough muscle. And it's like, okay, well, that's not what the figure division is about. It's about symmetry. It's about flow. It's about shape. Figure is a very genetically dominated division because you have to be able to have a nice taper. Mm-hmm. And if you're someone who has a blocky waist, it's really hard to outwork that. It's not impossible, but it's really hard to outwork that if you're standing on stage with someone who's already genetically set up that way. Yeah. And at that point in that year and at that show, I was that person.
So you make a really good point here. You have so many people that they see a class and they really like that class. Mm-hmm. And at a point, your body and your genetics are going to choose the class that you're best set for.
100%, yes.
And that's where, you know, a good coach is going to give you that feedback and talk to you about that. But again, sometimes people will set out and they say, I like this class. I want to be in this class. Well, you might not be that guy or that girl
right.
that's, you know, has the genetics, has the, you know, the base for that class. Yeah. So, you know, allowing yourself to do one that's better suited for you is always going to be better.
Yeah. And I would have loved to continue with wellness. It just, my body doesn't develop the way that a wellness girl's body should develop. Like I already mentioned, like my posterior chain, including my back, which was always my feedback with figure, they're really hard for me to grow for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because I can't see them or what's up, but I just cannot do it very well. And, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is I won my pro card in figure in 2021 at Junior USA's, and it was my 3rd show ever. Which again, it's not lost on me that that's very quick, but that's also kind of a double-edged sword too. And that's something that our coach Jess Briggs and I talk about a lot because she's a 4-show pro. She won her card last year at Universe, also under Tyler. And she and I talk about it all the time. Like there's some sort of dysphoria that happens when you get your pro card so quickly. And I hesitate to say this to the general masses because I know that it sounds like really almost like privileged, but it's, so strange when you are doing a sport where you're fully aware that everyone around you has been working for, you know, almost close to 10 years. Some of these people I've met trying to get their pro card and you do it so quickly. It feels like this is going to sound so almost rude, but it's like, that was kind of easy. Like, what's all the big like hullabaloo about? You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, well, I already achieved what I thought was my dream, and no one tells you about the almost like emptiness that comes after that. And sort of like the post-show blues are a thing for sure, but I really got hit hard with them after my pro card win, and especially after my pro debut last year. It's just kind of like, okay, like especially after my pro debut, actually, because I was up on stage with Olympians. Like,
oh yeah,
those girls are huge. Like,
yeah.
Tyler and I were sitting backstage, and this is a story you've probably heard at least once or twice. But we were sitting backstage, and the girl who got second that day was sitting back there eating a freaking In-N-Out burger, and in between bites was taking her salt shaker and freaking knocking it back. And Tyler and I are looking at each other like, what the fuck, dude? Ooh. And I'm like eating my modest little rice cakes with jelly, and I'm like, do you think I should eat some more food? And he was like, yeah, let me go upstairs real quick. And he grabbed me a peanut butter and jelly that I had made for after show. And it was really good, but it still didn't do the job. And that's not like, it was just a learning experience, because I ended up being on stage for a full hour that day.
Yeah, we did not expect that.
Yeah, figure was the only pro division at that show, and we were up there for a full hour. And I got called in second callouts, which, bro, that felt so good. But by the time they were done assessing second callouts, I got bumped down to third, because I had burned through all my food so quickly and my legs were like gone. And again, just kind of like a learning experience thing. But after that show and seeing how big these girls were, because I went to Sandy right after to get my feedback, and she was talking to the girl who was eating the hamburger, and she literally told her, do not get your shoulders any bigger. You will have to go up a division if you get any bigger. And then she turned to me and she was like, Laura, you're still too small. I was like, God, and looking at that girl, I was like, holy shit. The amount of size I'm going to have to put on in order to get to where this girl is, I don't want to be told not to get any bigger, but it was just kind of wild to see. And so after that, I felt some kind of like, what did I get myself into? Because I don't feel as if maybe even I had enough experience like showing it, which isn't true, but had enough experience at that point to even like be up there with the big girls. I just didn't. There's an imposter syndrome that comes with winning your pro card so quickly. So I almost am envious, to be honest, of some of these people that have had to work a little bit longer in order to get there, because I feel like you appreciate it more when you've had to put in more time and energy into it. That's not to say I'm not grateful and I'm not appreciative of it. I just think I would appreciate it a little bit more if I had to work a little bit longer. But I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? There's probably people who are listening to this right now rolling their eyes saying, God, this bitch, she did so fast and I've been working for, whatever. But I almost am envious. I'd rather just have worked a little longer for it, I think. Weird thing to say, probably. Hot take.
Each level, as you step up and stuff, the game changes so much.
Yes.
And like you have people and say they were at a regional show and it was a very small class and they did well and they qualified for nationals. Mm-hmm. And then they get to nationals, they're like, oh,
yeah,
everybody there was that guy at their show. And then, okay, well then you look at, the different national shows and you get to bigger national shows, like, okay. And then you get to the pro level. It's like, so there's that big step each time.
The pro level makes you realize you're now back to being the small fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like if you've got good structure, you're winning a regional show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then if you've got good structure and a few other attributes, then, you're doing well at a national show. Well, everyone has that on the pro level.
Yeah.
Like everybody is like, they're all genetic phenomena. Yeah. They're all working hard. They're all eating correctly. They're all doing, they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's. They're doing everything correctly. So at that point, like, everybody's so good. And then just having to step up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
The big thing I've realized about female divisions too is like, so two of the girls that I can think of that she went against in that pro show were Natalia Soltero and Jossie Becerra, which are both top 5 Olympians.
Jossie was the one eating a hamburger, and I was like bewildered by
Jossie
her.
was like 4th, and I think Natalia was like 3rd, and she's been 2nd before in the Olympia.
Yeah.
So, and like I think Natalia's like 39.
She's in her 40s.
Yeah.
I think.
So the older you get in some of these women's divisions, the more dense and mature your muscle is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these females think like they're going to get that doing this very quickly. And it's something you have to do for years and years and years, and then you just get better over time.
Muscle maturity is everything.
It is, and you have a lot of young athletes that see that and they don't understand. It's like, I mean, how old was? I mean, and you've got some people that, again, are on the very far end of that bell curve that are genetic anomalies. But for the most part, like you see these big guys, they're not 19, they're not 20. You know, you got a lot of guys that are placing top in the Olympia. I mean, they're not young men. You know, it's taken a long time to build that tissue.
That's like I had one of our coaches, Anthony Groves, he went down to Florida to compete in bodybuilding at a show there. And one of the guys that showed up was a light heavy that had been competing, I think, for 18 years.
Yeah.
And that was the only guy that beat him. And I was like, Brad, you can't be upset about that one.
No,
I
he's
was
got
like,
time on you.
I
at
was
that
like,
point.
he's got a lot of years on you, and he's been doing this for a while. So you got to remember that with every show you go to, there might be somebody, and the reason they beat you is because they've been doing it longer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like we had a girl who came one spot away from being pro at USA's, and there was one girl in her class that was just ridiculous. Like she looked insane. She ended up winning overall the whole show.
Gosh,
but we
so
looked at her like past contest history, and that same show the year prior, she was one spot away from becoming pro. So she had one more year of work. She was basically in the position that our girl was in.
Yeah.
And she just did work for another year, came back and won the whole show.
Yep.
So that's what a lot of people don't realize is you just got to do this stuff a long time. Add it up.
Yeah. I mean, again, like we were talking about, I think sometimes people, they take for granted how long it takes to build tissue.
Yes.
And to your point there, you saying that taking that long off season was very good for you. For my first show, man, I was small, you know, and my very, very first show, similar situation. My coach was an older coach, and he was kind of going by what they thought was the right way to do it. I mean, didn't have a lot of science backing it, but just this is what we did in 1990. You know, and then later I worked with a coach that was a lot more educated. Went into my second show, was still small. Took 2 years off and gained 20 pounds of stage weight.
Yeah.
You know, was 172 and took second, come back at 192 and won overall.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. At Kentucky State. And then, you know, from there just continued to, you know, to try and improve. But it takes a while to build muscle. Yeah. You know, it really does.
So we have a few more topics we're going to talk about because I know a lot of people have been asking, like, what have you been doing lately?
Oh, okay.
So, you know, we're definitely in a different stage of life right now. I've told some of our close friends, some people know that, but like you mentioned taking a break from bodybuilding, which is what we've had to do.
Yeah.
Talk more about what you've been doing lately. Like, I know you've been focusing more on coaching. You've been getting into more lifestyle things for yourself. What's kind of the goals and the plan right now?
I have a pretty hefty roster. So like Tyler said, I've just been focusing a lot on coaching now. Lots of people to take care of, which I'm grateful for. Other than that, I've taken a step back from bodybuilding in the sense that I just, at that point in time, couldn't really live the rigid lifestyle that it demands. And I don't want to half-ass something ever. So I'm either going to do it or I'm not. That's not to say I'm not following, you know, some sort of lifestyle diet now, because I am. It's just a lot more relaxed than my diet used to be. So like I eat 4 meals a day. I do cardio 4 times a week for 25 minutes because I asked for it. Like I really just only had a step goal, which was great. But I at some point I was like, I need to clock back into something. My training's only 3 days a week. I do shoulders on Wednesday with Jess Briggs. I mentioned her so many times, but and then I'll do glutes 2 times a week, and then I'll do Pilates twice a week. I've gotten really big into Pilates since May or so. April is when I started taking kind of like a step back from living the lifestyle as I was previously. But I found Pilates because I honestly just needed like a fitness outlet that wasn't so in my head. Bodybuilding started to become kind of like a chore or a job. I really had to think a lot. There was just so much that went into it. And on some level, I just needed someone to tell me what to do without me having to think about it at all. So when I go into Pilates, it's obviously a group class setting. I just do what the instructor tells me to do. I can kind of shut my brain off for 50 minutes, get sort of like my stretching in. Like, that's what I really love Pilates for. Like, it's really hard, but I feel more limber. My joints feel better. Like, just kind of a different area of fitness than what I had been doing previously. That was going to make me feel better as just like a walking around human. So that's kind of what I've been doing. So strength training 3 times a week, Pilates twice a week, still kind of clocked into a diet, but something that's not super crazy. Like, my meals are rather laid back.
Yeah, they're simple.
Yeah, I mean, I eat like a bagel with a certain amount of cream cheese in the morning to meet my macros with like a Core Life shake. Like I'm really just doing the like fit girly thing right now. My second meal of the day is like a gluten-free pasta with like some extra lean ground beef. I have a salad with chicken, and then I have like a yogurt meal at the end of the night. Like it's as simple could be, which is what I needed for like, who even knows how long I need this for, but I have been just so clocked into bodybuilding that I started to get so burnt out on it that I just needed a little break. And that break has now extended. Tyler and I are trying to like have a family and do things like that. So our focus has just shifted from, okay, we are athletes, we're clocked into this, we're doing what we need to do, to now being like, okay, what's our life going to look like in like 3 to 5 years from now? We need to start thinking about that. I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination. I'm 28, but like I would like to start getting on stuff like that now, you know? So I'm just kind of taking a step back from bodybuilding, more focused on my athletes and just kind of focused on my health in general, not necessarily building a physique to be stage worthy or anything like that. That's not really where my care is right now.
She's training to be a mom.
There you go.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yes, I am. No, but it's just a lot more relaxed, which is what I needed, because I was just really starting to hate it. And honestly, that was kind of making me start to hate my job, like really a lot, because I just didn't want to have anything to do with bodybuilding for a little bit there. And luckily or thankfully, I'm not in that place anymore. But man, it was touch and go there for a while. So I needed to find something different.
I think what's brought you back is seeing all the highs of your clients.
Yeah.
And competitors. And I know we can all relate on that. Like when you see somebody win and you see what they've done and you can take them as far as they want to go, I think that's what makes us love it.
100%.
I get a lot of good feeling from that. That's like some of my highest highs are seeing, overall wins, pro card wins, just seeing somebody get results that they never thought they could get.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
It is a double-edged sword though, because with the high highs come really low lows. Like bringing up Amber, like when she got one spot away from her card this year, like I felt horrible about that, because there's a sense of responsibility that comes with that too, feeling like you did, even though objectively speaking, if you have not done anything other than exactly what you could have done with this person to make them look as best as they could have with what they already have, it just makes you feel badly or almost like guilty, like, oh, could I have done something else for real? Like, was there anything else I did not think of that I could have thrown into their protocol to make them go a little bit further? And it's just this game of like constantly like beating yourself down for anywhere from 24 to 36 hours afterward. And for me, sometimes I dwell on them for like a week. And so again, high highs, low lows, I just feel sometimes like, I don't know, beat down by the job, because you just want something so badly for that client. And if you don't deliver that, it's like, damn, I hope they don't leave. It's only a matter of time. But how do you also explain that to someone too? Because it sounds like a cop-out answer, truly. Even though it is the answer, it sounds like, well, just give me more time. Like, hang around for a little longer, please. Like, but I really mean that. Like, I need to put more tissue on you in order for you to be successful in most cases.
You had said something earlier, and this ties into that very well. But you had said something earlier about making educated guesses when coaching someone. And really, that's what we're doing. It's like an elementary school science project. You change a variable and you get feedback.
Yes.
So the longer you work with someone, the larger the data bank we have on the athlete. And so we can cross-reference. We can look back at what we did in the off season. We can look back at what we did last prep. So on and so on. And, sometimes it might not be the answer they want, but more time often makes such a difference. The longer you're with an athlete, again, the more objective feedback you get, the better you can make those educated guesses. Right. And, you'll see that. You'll see somebody come out in their first show, and it's not that anything went wrong. It's just that they're so new to the sport.
Right.
And they're so, they've not had time to build that figure yet. They've not had time to build that structure, fill out their structure.
Right.
And then the farther you go, you'll see one show to the next. Ideally, improvements until that person is now a force inside of that division.
Right. I do think that social media has perpetuated this sense of like instantaneous wins, though. I can't tell you the amount of people I come across and they're like, it's my first show. I want to win an overall. I need to win the whole show. And I'm like,
yep.
But why? Like, I don't understand. I can appreciate the goal setting of it all. I think that's great. And it's very optimistic. However, it's not always realistic. I think that people have started almost bypassing the sense of, oh, I need to kind of put my time in order to get to where I need to be. Because if we're, again, talking about all these people that have time on you, why are there now all these, newbies almost assuming that they're going to sweep a whole show? It's rare. It happens, but it's rare.
Yeah.
And so they get this sense of disappointment after that first show when they got fourth or whatever, because Joe from down the road has been doing this for 15 years longer and has way more tissue and therefore better shape in most cases. Meanwhile, they just looked like a little boy on stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Pay your dues.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Exactly. So, which a lot of people don't always like to hear that answer, of course, because they need to know what's going to happen right now, which honestly takes us full circle back to the peds discussion we were having at the beginning of the episode, because they're like, oh shit, I didn't win on the first time. Obviously the answer is I have to do as much tren as I can get my hands on. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, well, now you're stuck in this shit situation because you fucked your hormones and you're 22.
So with females, what are your views on supplementation and all that? Because I know a lot more females are getting into this now, and I feel like they're getting a lot of incorrect information. They're doing a little bit too much. You see girls posting reels on Instagram and their voice octave has changed.
I'm just wondering why people are running so much Winstrol for so long, especially bikini girls. Like the bikini girls are the culprit for me online, where I hear their voices so deep, and meanwhile my bigger girls don't have that sort of deep octave that they're now hitting. Yeah. And I just think that some coaches in here or in the field is what I mean, are using way too much for what reason? For no honestly other reason other than lack of education sometimes in most cases. Yeah. But as far as like protocol for my girls, I don't use a lot. Again, less is more in most of these cases, especially with females, in my opinion.
Yeah. You can get also, by with minimal.
Yes. Especially because our endocrine systems are much more fragile than a male's. It's paramount to really control that dosage. And unfortunately, a lot of girls are, again, like he alluded to, wrong information, or maybe not even wrong information, but definitely not the best info or advice or, whatever. Some of the stuff that they're using is good, but in certain situations and for limited time, limited quantities, not something you run for a full year, and so I do really like Anavar a little bit, just a little bit. You don't need a lot. Are you eating your food? That's what I want to know first. Yeah. Before I give you anything.
A lot of it's getting test levels optimized.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get that blood work done.
Get that blood work done. Make sure everything's optimal. If your test levels are in a good spot and your estrogen, progesterone, all in a good spot, you're going to gain muscle.
Yeah.
So many people, they think about all these other things, but your body isn't going to grow and improve if you're not healthy.
Right.
Nope.
It's going to prioritize health over building tissue and correcting things like that.
Yes, and people hate that answer. Like I get girls that come to me with like that really want to compete, that have severe digestive issues, really bad unmanaged PCOS, which makes it extremely hard to, first of all, get someone to cut weight, but ever get them into contest shape. Oh, it's not impossible, but it's really hard to do. And so those are the kind of things that people don't think about when they come to a coach. It's like, me as a professional, I have to fix what's wrong with this first so that the other stuff later on can be advantageous.
Yep. And that takes extreme patience.
Yes,
it does.
Again, we're back to time. Exactly.
Yes. And that's hard to tell somebody because it's like they want this goal fast and you're like, oh, well, it might take you a year or two. And they're like,
dreams aren't supposed to be accomplished in 3 months.
The other day.
2 months in, it's like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So for everybody that would like to follow you on social media, where can they find you at, Laura?
Mostly on Instagram. I don't really do a whole lot of other social media. So you can find me on Instagram at Laura Bedson, straight up just my name. That's about it.
And the Built by Bedson page also.
Oh yes, and the Built by Bedson page. You can get a hold of us there as well as seeing some of my client transformations. I have some on my page as well. But I don't just take competitors, I take lifestyle as well. And I really like lifestyle people. They're awesome.
I've got quite a few of those.
I love them.
Yeah. If you need to get in shape for your wedding or you just want to look better,
hit me up. Just hit me up.
Cool.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
This has been Bedson and Coffey Unfiltered. Thank you guys for listening.
Make sure to go follow us on social media.